All right, my name is Sean Fallon, and you're listening to episode 19, 30 Rock. Welcome to From First to Last. Where everybody knows. Hello again, and welcome again. My name is Sean Fallon. This is From First to Last. My guest today, he's a guy just trying to have it all in the big city. He's Matt Curione. How are you today, Matt?
I can have it all.
You can have it all.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm having it all. Yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. I just finished my Blimpie sandwich.
Oh, God.
I'll tell you all about it in a week.
When it slides out.
Anyway.
Anyway, what show did you choose?
I chose 30 Rock, home of the night cheese.
We'll get to night cheese in a minute. Right, 30 Rock ran for 138 episodes from 2006 until 2013. Matt, what is your experience with 30 Rock?
This is actually a show back from when I used to watch shows week to week live on television that I caught the first episode and we were hooked. We watched it every week for the 7 years that it was on. I changed my work schedule around so I would have off on Thursday nights. Like, this show meant a lot to me. It's still one of those things that I still quote it on a daily basis. I see myself in some of the characters, which, you know, sometimes that can be terrifying when you're talking about a sitcom. But I mean, it's one of those shows that hit me close to home. And just the interactions between everyone. And I just fell in love. And I really adore this show. It's one of my favorites of all time.
Fantastic. So, I'm trying to think how I got into it. Oh, yeah, no, my wife visited me when I lived in Thailand. Like, we just met, and we met in Thailand, and then came back to Australia, then she came back to Thailand for a month on, like, our second date, which was just, like, traveling around Thailand for months together to see how it panned out. And when she left, one of the things she did, she bought me the first season of this, just at a market. She was like, oh, I just picked one at random for you. And I just absolutely, like you say, it just hit just such a sweet spot. Like, it was that great mix of crazily funny, surreal, but it had like emotional weight, but never drifted into melodrama unless it wanted to for like comedic effect. Yeah, and just always, had just that array of just ridiculously good characters and just knew how to use them all.
Ridiculous good characters and great like recurring jokes as well.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, it is very. I'd put it up there with Arrested Development to a point of that sort of sense of like the 30 Rock world is very built. You know, it's very lived in.
Yeah,
things bounce off, and things will reoccur, and there's a lot of like background jokes and stuff like that. Now, so watching the first episode, or like the last time you watched the first episode, what did you think?
I am always reminded of the terrible theme song. That is actually for what's her name? Pam, the morbidly obese, overly confident woman.
That's it?
Yes.
Overly confident, morbidly obese woman, either way.
Yes, with the fat suit that smells like corn chips. I always remember that, and I always remember the theme song. Like, I'll just start humming it, going, "Who's that girl?" It was terrible, and thank God they, stopped that after that episode. I mean, yeah, it's a fun song, but I don't want to hear that every week.
No.
But yeah, the first episode's good. It sets up all the characters. You're introduced to Jack really quick, and you have the Liz and the Pete dynamic, which I've always loved. I've always loved Scott Adsit on this show. He plays Hornberger, that magnificent leader of men that he is, and he's fantastic in this, and he's such a great support system for Liz, because she has to deal with all manner of buffoonery on the set of The Girly Show. It's a girly show for girls, as Kenneth says in the first episode. But yeah, I mean, in the first episode also introduces Tracy, because, he's a burnt out movie star and now he's going to, go back to TV. And I I love this episode. I think it's one of the stronger pilots for a comedy because it tells you everything you need to know about the characters. I mean, in the first 2 minutes of the show, Liz Lemon buys all the hot dogs at a hot dog stand because someone cut in line and she doesn't like people who break rules. And that basically tells you everything you need to know about Liz Lemon that's going to happen throughout all 7 seasons. Like, she has a big heart, but she's not going to take any guff from anyone.
No.
I mean, and then you even have, Jane Krakowski, who I love on this show. Her character of Jenna is one of my favorites. She's great in this. Judah Friedlander, fantastic. I want all of his hats. I want Taco Robot on my head. And this also, first episode, you have Rachel Dratch, who was supposed to play the Jenna character. And, eventually they wrote her out, which is kind of a shame because I love Rachel Dratch. I think she's great. But, I mean, it's a good first episode. And you can tell that they were getting into a groove early on. And it just flows from there.
Yeah, very much so, like you say. I think everyone's very quickly painted, like you say, Liz buying the hot dogs.
Yeah. I've always wanted to do that, by the way.
Oh, no, I imagine that'd be great. And then, like, Jack's introduction, just, like, kicking the wall down. He's like, Gary's dead.
Gary's dead.
That's it. Like, straight away, like, oh, shit. Like, it's interesting as well great. To sort of... I mean, he's straight in, alpha male, just kicks the wall down straight into it. And then, obviously, Tracy... I think the first image of Tracy is him on the freeway, isn't it? Where he's like, I am a Jedi! And, I don't think it's, like, thinking about, like, another sitcom sort of this time, similar sort of thing, with being, like, Parks and Rec. Yeah. Like a sort of ensemble business comedy.
Which started, like, I think a year or two later?
Yeah. And, I mean, everyone, I think it's just universally acknowledged that the first season of Parks and Rec is trash.
It's not very good, no.
No, and all the characters are just all over the place. Like, I mean, that's such a weird one for, like,
to recommend to people. It's a weird show to recommend to people, too.
It is, because you've got to, like, say to the people, like, no, just push through, because, Andy's a dick, and Leslie Knope's quite unlikable, and I can't remember that other dude, the one who Leslie Knope's in love with, who they just got rid of.
I forget his name.
Mike?
Maybe? I don't know, he moved.
Yeah,
All right, Parks and Rec's a show where if I tell someone that they should watch it, I just say, start with the second season.
Yeah, just go straight into it.
Wiki the first season, and then just start with the second.
Yeah, that's it, because me and Austin Chin on the X-Files episode were talking about this, like, in terms of a show that, like, I guess, at that point we were talking about X-Files, but talking about, like, 30 Rock and that. Like, a show that just, boom, characters got completely top to bottom, and then, like, Parks and Rec being a show that's a perfect example of, like, shit, we don't really know what we're doing, and then they locked it in so well.
Yeah, they did.
But it took them about 10 episodes to do it. Mm-hmm. Whereas 30 Rock, like you say, even Kenneth, who's only in it for a tiny bit.
That chinless bastard.
That chinless bastard, that Appalachian... whatever, they'll cut him open like a tauntaun. He's just perfectly sketched as well, of just this guy who just, because I think he has the line where it's just like, I just love television so much.
Yes, yes.
And that is his whole character from beginning to end.
Oh, he's
all
great.
The way through.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, perfect. And I think they did... I think it's interesting as well, I think, with this show, and the show knew it as well, is how much, like, this first episode is very plotty. It was very much a beginning, middle, end. There was a lot of plot points and story, and a lot of it is about creating the show. Whereas that is something that as the show goes on, as 30 Rock goes on, that just gets cut and cut and cut until, in the end, they're not really... The show's just something that's just happening in the background. Like, it's not the set... It's not,
exactly. It's just, a thing that happens.
Yeah, that's it. And they sort of like, okay, well, that was a means to an end for the first, like, say, 2 years.
Yeah.
But there's only so much humor you can get out of that. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that as the show went on, maybe just moving past the first episode now, it just became, like, sort of, again, another globally acknowledged thing. The TGS was shit. The show was just awful.
Yeah.
And that was just it.
I mean, when you have sketches called Beep Beep Ribby Ribby, it's not going to be the best thing.
That's it. And I think it was interesting. I never watched it, but did you ever watch Aaron Sorkin's Studio 60?
I watched half an episode, and the only reason I watched it is because they would constantly make fun of it on 30 Rock.
Yeah, that's it. Like, I've never watched any of it, but my friend John was like, mate, you need to watch it because it is garbage. It is the hottest garbage. Mm-hmm. So I've watched I've kind of had a little bit of a look. I've looked on YouTube, and it's very much the, like, the anti this show.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's so interesting of like...
And they
Aaron
both started
Sorkin's
around
thing.
the same time.
Yeah. Well, that was it. I mean, I think there was the idea that, okay, well, this Aaron Sorkin drama is just going to sink this little SNL nonsense. And then obviously it got, 30 Rock got so good and so big that Aaron Sorkin went on the show and made a Studio 60 joke. You know, that was how big they got.
Yes, he did.
Which, I guess, the credit's Aaron Sorkin to be able to laugh
Yeah,
at
good for
himself,
him. Good for him, you know? At least he can take a joke.
Well, that's it. Well, what's weird with 30 Rock is I was reading the original pitch was sort of a newsroom situation. So Liz Lemon's character would be like the producer on a news show. I think she would be the producer on a news show and say Jenna's the anchor woman.
Okay.
And then Jack comes in as like, so they're doing like just a moderate news thing.
Yeah.
And then Jack comes in and tries to like turn it into like a right-wing Fox News, and that's the conflict.
Oof.
And apparently
I'd never heard about this. Wow.
Yeah, I just read it the other day, like doing research for this, and I think they pitched it to Lorne Michaels, and he said, no, let's just do this. You know, this is what you know, like, because I think she didn't want to be one of those things where she's making like a Seinfeld and it's like, this is my life.
Yeah.
You know, but it's very much not that at all. Like, you know, obviously Tina Fey, happily married, bunch of kids, very successful, and then Liz Lemon is the complete anti that.
Always working towards that.
Yeah, like always trying to get to that, always covered in food stains, unlucky in love, just pathetic. Like
eating peasant food.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I'll always admire Tina Fey's just complete lack of ego.
Yeah.
Like, she always dived in on it and was happy to just be the complete butt of it. Well, everyone, even like Alec Baldwin, goes
definitely
really silly like.
Yeah, I mean, in the first season, which has one of my favorite episodes, Jack Tour, where I work at a coffee house, and I do that thing where he walks around holding the two mugs, and I ask customers, you know, is this how I should walk? This looks natural. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should
I do it on my hands?
That's that's a great episode too.
Yeah, no, I mean, the first season, I mean, I would probably say with 30 Rock, seasons 1, 2, and 3 are seminal.
Oh, they're terrific. It has
a bit of a dip, I think, on 4.
I've always said that, actually.
Yeah. And then I think 4 sort of dips at the start, and then Michael Sheen as Wesley Snipes comes into it, and then it picks back up.
Yeah.
And then for 5, 6, 7, I think, it might even be 4 and 5. There's 2 seasons that are a bit hit and miss, like it doesn't really know what it's doing.
Yeah.
And then when there was sort of the end in sight, they just put the foot down and went for it.
See what? Actually, in the middle there, when it became like guest star of the week, that's when they lost me for a little bit. Like I was still watching it, but I'm like, oh come on, I want more Franken-Toofer. I don't want current guest star this week.
Yeah, because there was a few episodes where it'd be like, Jennifer Aniston's here as their college roommate.
Yeah.
And then she has a little adventure, and then... I mean, I
when
like
she pulls the cop's gun.
One, but... Yeah, stealing the cop's gun, yeah. And yeah, I think the show was definitely strongest when it just focused on that ensemble, and like, when it had the guest stars who were like Will Arnett, or Salma Hayek, or Julianne Moore, or I'm going to say Elaine Stritch, but I think that's not her name.
No, Elaine Stritch. She plays Colleen.
Jack's mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She got to watch, for her birthday, but it's not the one she wanted.
Yeah, that's it. And she got run over and so forth. Yeah, like that sort of, when they had those, like, I think that was the cool thing where they had, like, obviously that tight ensemble, and then they just had, like, the bit players were just as strong.
Yeah, when they
were...
I was going to say, when they had, like, these guest actors, but they weren't just a one-shot deal. They'd be a recurring character. Like, Will Arnett's character was throughout basically the entire series, and he was always a great foil for Jack.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And he had his own sort of story arc.
Yeah.
Of, like, trying to out Jack.
Yes.
And just not being as good. But having, like, I think... the whole thing of that, of like his different methods to get in, like marrying Kathy Geiss, and then didn't he get gay married and adopt kids or something? There was some sort of
because of course he did.
Of course he did, yeah. And then you see Elaine Stritch, like Jack's mother, like their sort of contentious relationship and how that built and built and built.
Yeah.
And Jack's like, and Elizabeth Banks as well was a great character, obviously the female Jack.
Oh.
So they did very well in that sense. It was only when they had, like, Oprah, Jennifer Aniston, and maybe even, like, Steve Martin, like, when they just sort of came on just because they were, just to be there.
Actually, that Steve Martin episode is one of my favorites.
Which one is the Steve Martin episode?
He's under house arrest, but he pretends he isn't.
His perfect man.
And he's Liz's perfect man, and then he gets, attacked by, I think, a Tracy sex doll.
He does. You're right. I'm obviously misremembering that. Yeah. Because
it's
of course
wonderful.
he does.
Because of course he does, because 30 Rock.
Well, that's interesting as well. I did notice this, like, thinking about the first episode. A lot of the very surreal elements are quite pushed down, I think. In that first episode, there's not really the sort of general weirdness that would sort of permeate the rest of the show. I think they
even the rest of the season.
Well, the rest, yeah, the entire, yeah. Like, they sort of start very much like, okay, this is just, it's a workplace comedy. We got some quite big characters. Oh, Jenna's a temperamental actress. Tracy's a wild card, and so on. And then after a couple of episodes, you're like, right, okay, you're in. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's have Blue Man show up.
yeah, exactly. Like
you ate my blood cookie. Like the show's gonna get weird.
Yeah, things are gonna start getting odd. It's funny actually. You mentioned before about Rachel Dratch. Like I did read a bit of a sad story in relation to her and this show because, like you say, in the original pilot, she played Jenna Carlo, I think the character's name was, and she left SNL with Tina Fey for this show, and then obviously was she was a guest star in every episode of the first season and possibly a bit of the second. Yeah. But gradually just got rid of. She doesn't really appear at all. And it's like, oh shit, poor Rachel Dratch.
I know, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, and she sort of appears now and again. Like she was in Broad City a bit. She was in Amy Schumer and all that. So she gets work. Yeah. She gets around.
And she also has one of my favorite appearances on 30 Rock when she does her Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
And
when she beats
White
the shit
Diamonds!
Yeah.
The Gift of Pain.
Well,
that's another character that I love. I love Josh.
Yeah, and Josh is such an interesting character in the sense of, like, he's such a big part of, like, again, the first 40-odd episodes, maybe more, and then he quits, and then that's it. They just replace him, don't they, with Danny, and then Danny just doesn't
Danny's the
appear
Canadian?
Anymore. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Who's... I can't for the life of me remember the actor's name, and he sort of like comes in and he's in it for a bit, and then he disappears as well. Yeah. And then I think in one of the live episodes, it's like Danny's having flashbacks, but he's remembering Josh's life.
Yes, yes, he is.
Just to say, this character is meaningless.
Yes,
it's just interchangeable.
And
nonsense.
They knew it, which was great. They played it up.
Yeah, I mean that was sort of the self-awareness on the show, like. Because there are a lot of episodes I remember there being jokes about the fact that the writer's room just wasn't a set they used anymore. It'd just be like someone coming like, oh shit, is this thing still here? Or,
we still have
we have to run a show. Do we? Like they were very much aware of what they were doing. And stuff like that, like the Josh and Danny thing's great. Anything else about that first episode you can think of? Any sort of like, because I've been looking at my notes and I don't have tons. Like I did find myself, I was distracted by the show, so I didn't write notes.
Yeah,
and I've seen this episode a million times. And it's
so have I, because I've started this show like as like a marathon like so many times. And I don't know. It's just I really don't have anything else to say about it other than I really like it.
Yeah,
and it really lays the groundwork for the entire series.
It does. I mean, I did have in my notes. This episode is probably the most that Liz and Tracy ever talk to each other civilly. In the whole show.
Yes.
Like, I don't think they ever have a conversation that isn't fraught after this. Mm-hmm. Except for, I would say, the last episode, probably, where they have the strip club conversation.
Yes.
The strip club conversation. Okay, well, moving on to that then, how did you feel watching the last episode again?
I watched it tonight, and I remembered how much I love this finale.
It's a cracking finale.
It's a great finale, because it's not like other finales where they repeat everything, Yeah. It's basically the final episode of 30 Rock is a greatest hits of 30 Rock. I mean, they have all the great references, Yeah. They call back Night Cheese, gets a mention. Conan O'Brien comes back.
Of course.
Tracy sings the karaoke again. They bring back one of my favorite things to do in the world, which is a cupcake sandwich.
Yes.
Because if you haven't had a cupcake sandwich, you really haven't lived yet. And they also brought back references to my favorite Kevin Grisham novel, The Rural Juror.
Oh my, okay.
When they brought back The Rural Juror, I was so happy.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they're doing that. Oh my God, this is wonderful. And of course, towards the end of the episode, I cried again because that's what I do during this finale. I cry.
It's that joke, the rural juror joke.
It's like so good.
It's so good. You know when you kind of like you watch a TV show or you watch a film and someone says a line of dialogue or a joke and you just think to yourself, if I had created that,
Yeah.
I would sleep well for the
Yes.
rest of my life.
Yes.
And if that I'd been the person who kind of come like, oh, what should we call the Kevin Grisham novel? And I'd been like, Rural Juror.
Rural Juror.
Fucking done. That's it. I just write it on a piece of paper, hand it to Tina Fey, walk out, and you'd never see me again. Just incredible. It's like the sequel's Urban Further.
Yes, of course it is.
But that song as well, when it's just flug and blug.
And it's a good song, though. Like,
well, they do. Yeah,
Robert
they did.
Carlock wrote the songs for this, and I don't know if you've heard the album. There's like 30 Rock the album, where they have basically every song from the show on like a 2 CD set. It's really really good. This song I believe is on there. Muffin Top is on there.
Oh yeah.
So good. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always happy with that when the joke isn't enough, like the execution is added in as well.
Yes.
Like that's why I'm a big fan of like Lonely Island. Like their songs are funny, but they're also very very good songs. Like you don't listen to it once and get a laugh, and then never listen to it again.
Yeah.
Like I can just have that on rotation. I don't care that it's like some stupid song. It's like, nah, this has got a beat, and I'm happy to walk along with it.
It's a good song. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's sort of like putting the work in. I'm always happy for that.
Another thing I love about this episode is that Lutz finally gets his revenge on everyone. It's actually a beautiful moment when he finally gets the entire writer's room to eat Blimpie.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know if you're in Australia. You've probably never had Blimpie.
No.
Yeah, they're not good.
For the context of this, I'm assuming they're awful.
Yeah, they're not good. They're like a low-rent Subway.
Oh, shit.
And Subway is terrible. So
Subway
imagine
is just food.
3 grades below Subway, you'll have Blimpie. They are the worst sandwiches.
Well, it's great, obviously, that's such a Lutz thing that he'd have the shit sandwich just to punish everyone.
Of course he would, because he's Lutz.
Because he's Lutz. But it's
51-year-old Lutz.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's good as well. That, like, again, like you say, with this being a finale, and it's very much the finale, like you say, greatest hits, or I've been calling them like a victory lap. Mm-hmm. Like you have that thing where you hit a load of old points, and you sort of just sell it, and you kind of celebrates the show, but it gets, it still works, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's not just like a clip show or something like that, but it's cool to have, like, even within that sort of victory lap of, oh, we'll have one last TGS just to show like Tracy being a bit of a dick and so forth, and just to remind us of that, and Jenna has the freak out with the mirror and so on. Mm-hmm. But just to have that little weird central plot of that, like, they're all freaking out because Lutz has to order the sandwich. Lutz gets to order lunch, which could have been a plot line that happened at any point during the entire show, but to save it for the finale as just like, this show's amazing because of all this stuff you've seen, but here's something a little bit new just to remind you that we're still really good.
Yeah.
Just fantastic.
And this show actually, this last season and this last episode delivered on Jack's prophecy from the first season. You remember the prophecy?
Tell me the prophecy.
It happened during the poker game when Kenneth rides away on his bicycle and Alec Bald and Jack says, within 8 years, we'll all either be working for him or be dead by his hands.
By his hand. Yeah, that's very true.
I was so happy when they followed through on that, because I was saying that for years watching the show. I was like, when's Kenneth going to kill everyone? When is he going to become boss? And then he did.
Yeah, I mean, that is genius as well, because even though it's absurd, the idea that he would become president of NBC.
Well, he just loves TV
it's
so
also
much.
Completely, it's completely, like, Liz was never going to become the president. Pete wasn't. Lutz wasn't.
No.
It had to be Kenneth. No, it's great. And, I mean, that is such a weird sort of running gag as well, the idea that Kenneth is immortal.
Yes, and they hit on that with like the last scene of the show, which is great.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, okay.
It's all based on stories my grandmother used to tell me. Oh, I know.
Yeah, what? And I think that is just such a great final image for the show of just like, I think it is like, it's almost like a mission statement of, this is a traditional sort of workplace comedy, but it has such a streak of like almost drug-inducing surrealness. And this is how we're going to end the show, with the idea that the Page, who's been a bit funny through the whole thing, is now president of the network / immortal.
I love it so much. It's such a great beat to end on.
Oh yeah, it's perfect, and it's a good final like bemused laugh, and then the show ends, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's 30 Rock. That's 30 Rock down to its
Yeah,
T.
and another thing that's 30 Rock down to the T is one of the last things that Tracy says. It's at the end of the final episode of TGS, and he's there with the entire cast, and he has that one line that says, not a lot of people watched our show, but the joke's on you. We got paid anyway. Which is basically 30 Rock encapsulated in one sentence.
Yeah, because, I mean, 30 Rock has a bit of a... I'd say the similarity with 30 Rock as another show would actually be Fringe.
Okay,
like the J.J. Abrams one. Because Fringe was a show that sort of wasn't really expected to do anything, and then managed to eke out, like, the first season, and then get to the second, and then each season we're like, oh, this is the last one we're going to get at this. So the creators were like, well, fuck it. We might only have 20 episodes of this and never again, so let's go wild. And they just get more and more and more insane. And then they kept getting more seasons, and they kept going more insane until they got like, okay, you can have a bridged final season to wrap it up. And then they went out with a bang, and it was amazing. And the same with 30 Rock. Like, it's to look back on that first episode and how proper it is. It's very much a workplace comedy, and then gradually the show just gets wilder and wilder and wilder, because they just got to that point like, well, fuck it, we might get cancelled tomorrow, so let's just see what we can do.
There were so many moments during this show's run where it was on the bubble, where they had no idea. They're like, are we going to come back? Yeah, I guess, maybe.
So, just in case we don't, Kenneth's immortal.
Yeah, let's just go crazy. Come on.
Yeah, let's go well. We'll have some... I'm trying to think of, like... Well, obviously, they did the two amazing live episodes.
Yes.
Obviously, the thing I absolutely love, and this is one that my wife absolutely adores, is the Angie episodes. You know, where she's got the Queen of Jordan, like her reality TV show.
Oh, yes.
And you have, like, the two episodes of that. And again, that's just sort of a... Because they do have that. I think the last two seasons, they have a live episode in both, and they have a Queen of Jordan in both. Because they're just like, people like the first one, we'll give them a second one. You know, it's just like, fuck it, let's just get it. Let's just do it again, because it was fun. It was fun the first time. And, I mean, I think to be able to do that, because I guess another show, again, a show that's very similar to this is Parks and Rec. Yeah. But Parks and Rec never really did anything more than it was, if that makes any sense. Like, it was never as surreal as this.
No, it never was. But I mean, they got into crazy situations back over there in Pawnee. But I mean, it was never as crazy as it is on 30 Rock.
Yeah, 30 Rock did have more sort of magical realism.
And I feel that's one of the main reasons there was never a crossover, which it was rumored back in the day when these two shows were on. There was a rumored crossover that was going to happen, but they just couldn't figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, that's it. I guess there is no real... Yeah, those two streams don't really cross.
Like, why would Leslie go to New York?
Yeah, and why would they go to Pawnee?
To take an NBC tour, I guess? I don't know. I feel like Leslie doesn't watch television.
Yeah.
Well, she probably watches She probably watches C-SPAN, but she doesn't watch, television.
She wouldn't know what... that's not going to work. Which is a shame. But, because I don't think Amy Poehler was never in 30 Rock just as someone, was she?
I don't think so.
And obviously Tina Fey, I don't think was ever in Parks and Rec. I don't think there's... Well, let's have a look if there was any sort of crossover at all, but I don't think there was.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So I had the fun experience this week of... it's the Melbourne Writers' Festival, and I saw Steve Healy give a talk.
Okay.
And he wrote one episode of this, like he was in the writers' room.
Oh, wow.
He got to write one episode. And, he said it was an interesting experience, and it was interesting just to sort of hear how a writer's room works. And he said it's very similar to the show. He said you are sort of like living the show as you're doing it. Tina Fey's at the head of a table and everyone's writing jokes and all that. And he said it was great. He wrote the episode, it's called Black Light Attack, where Danny and not Tina, Liz, are having an affair.
Okay.
And I think that's the only thing I can think of it. And he's also, as well, I just noticed on YouTube, this is a bit of a deep cut. There was a character called Jerem.
I remember this name. Oh, geez.
And it was something where, like, I don't know why. I think he was the only guy in, like, a line dancing class that Liz and Jenna were doing. And he just hated Jenna. Like, there's a scene I just saw on YouTube, and she's like, Jenna's like, Jerem, look how drunk I am. Look how much cheese there's in my mouth. And Jerem just goes... That's not so much cheese. That's just the whole joke. And that guy is Steve Healy. Because when I saw it, I was like, oh, shit.
You're like, I do know you.
That last week. Because I would have asked him about that.
Yeah.
If I had him be like, hey, are you Jeremy? But yeah, that was fascinating just to have someone who'd like been on the inside. He was, Steve Healy. Very cool guy. Just started working on Veep. Very,
Okay,
very
cool.
funny dude.
Nice.
Again, I mean, I've just written about Rural Juror. I've written the word genius about 4 times around it.
Another thing I do love is Grizz's sitcom that comes out of everything.
Grizz and Hers?
Oh my god, yes. I would watch that. I would watch that every week.
Yeah, I mean, it is that genius thing as well, where Kenneth is, and this is a weird comedy trope that I absolutely love, but I will come back to it in a sec, where Kenneth says like, oh, what if someone does something, and then he looks at the dog and says, oh, don't you start, and then starts laughing. And that sort of trope of those like 90s sitcom like comedy beats, like BoJack Horseman, whenever they show horsing around, they've just got that tone perfectly of like, it's like a non-joke, but it's said like a joke.
Yeah.
So it is a joke, you know, like there's a whole sequence in BoJack Horseman where they're talking about writing a joke for the show, and it's like something happens and then they kind of turn to the camera, well, that went well, and that's a strong joke, and then we'll cut to commercial. Like, no, it's trash, but it is that I love that trope of like, now we're looking back on that and we've learned that language of like the terrible 90s sitcom joke. I don't know why it is. That's just one of those weird TV tropes I love. Like anytime anyone uses that as an example or shows how it works, and that's a perfect one. Grizz and Hers.
I love Grizz and Hers. I love Grizzin.com. I really do.
Grizzin.com are amazing. There's a weird thing in 30 Rock that I remember you used to always notice that helped like you say with the world building, like to make the world lived in. Everyone calls Liz something else.
Yes.
You know, she's Liz Lemon, or she's just Lemon, or Conan calls her Elizabeth.
Yes. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hello, Elizabeth. Let's not do this, Elizabeth. And then Grizz calls her Beth. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a scene where he goes in and they're like, oh, she says hello. Oh, how you doing? And he goes, bad, Beth. Tracy's done this, isn't it?
Bad, Beth.
I think that, and I think that's just genius of like, because there are people like that. Like you have friends who, depending on who knows them and how they know them, you know, you have a different name to different people and stuff like that. Like, my wife has about 19 nicknames.
Yeah.
Like, whenever we go back to her hometown, everyone calls her something different.
Oh.
And a lot of them, she can't even think where they come
That's
from.
confusing.
Yeah. So it's like, hey, Bubbles. Like, what the fuck you call Bubbles?
Bubbles?
She's like, no idea.
What is this?
Yeah, no idea. Because she's like Fiona, Fee, Chubby, Cone, Fuzzy, Bubbles, Perry, Pez. You're like, Jesus Christ, love.
Yeah, I mean, I love the name Lemon.
Genius.
I work with an Elizabeth, and ever since she started working there, I call her Lemon.
It's a great name. It's got so many weird connotations.
I think it was like a week in, I was like, I'm just going to call you Lemon from now on. Yeah. And she's like, oh, I love that show. I'm like, oh, good, you know what I'm talking about.
oh, thank Christ.
Yeah. So, like, I'll yell it across the restaurant and be like, Lemon!
That's good. I mean,
everyone needs a lemon in their life.
That's it. You know, if you find, if anything happens, find Elizabeth Lemon, ask her for advice, do the opposite.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes you can't have it all.
Well, that's what they say.
Yes.
Tell
that to the beeper
in
king.
that last... oh, God. Yeah, that's a character that just comes in and out, and every time that character comes in, it's
I hate him
genius.
so much.
Yeah, he's just perfectly hateable.
I hate Dennis. Ugh.
Dennis, he's the worst. Well, that actor, like, I don't know, do you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
I've seen a few episodes. He's on that. He's also Mayhem for, like, some of these insurance commercials. He's, like, the personification of Mayhem.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Ugh, I hate him. I hate the Beeper King.
Yeah, and he's an awful character on Brooklyn Nine-Nine as well. He's the Vulture.
Ugh, of course he is.
And he's just trash again. And just that same sort of,
he plays it well.
He does. He loves it. I mean, he does. He's not particularly likable, but he's watchable.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah,
would be
exactly.
because you do have some characters who you're like, no, you are annoying in the show.
No, you are terrible.
Annoying out of the show. Yeah, I can't watch the show if you're in it. You are the worst. And I think they do, and it makes sense as well that kind of him and Liz are like stuck together like a rat king. You know, the tails are entwined. You know,
that's a rat king.
Yeah, you got to cut the tail. Got to cut. Because I don't know, I know people like that who are like a perfectly like awesome woman who's just smart and great, and then they just have a bloke who's just a piece of shit,
and they're just stuck with a Beeper King.
Yeah, they're just stuck with a Beeper King. I know so many people listening to this may recognize themselves in this situation. But, like, yeah, there's so many people you know where you're just, like, you're going to go out on a night out, and they'll be like, oh, so-and-so's there. Yeah? Like, oh,
yeah,
and the
really?
And the husband's going to be there, too. Fuck, no, I'm out.
Yeah.
I can't do it, because I'll get stuck with him.
I've actually called, people that. It's like, they're a Beeper King. Don't be with that. Don't
That's
deal with a beeper king in your life.
No, that's good advice. I know too many beeper kings. Too many
They're
beeper
the
kings
worst.
with like too many perfectly good women. Just
Yeah.
women who just deserve better. And you're like, why are you with a beeper king?
Because technology is cyclical. It always comes back.
Yeah, that's. Oh yeah, of course, that's why.
Speaking of cyclical, I have to ask this. What is one of your favorite running gags on the show?
I'm a big fan of night cheese, which
Of
I don't
course.
know how much of a running gag that is.
It comes back from time to time, and I do partake in night cheese from now and again.
Again, my wife. I will come into a room and I'll just hear working on my night cheese. And she'll just be there, just in her pajamas, just eating cheese. Like her cheese thing. Like I think because she hadn't really watched 30 Rock, but she had the cheese. Like, when we lived in a different part of Australia, and we came back from Korea and we were just living with her parents, and we're both unemployed. And there would just be a certain thing where my wife would be like, "Ooh, 4 o'clock, time for cheese." And I would just go and have cheese. I'm like, "Oh, it's your night cheese." And then we ended up watching 30 Rock, and she's like, "Oh, working on my night cheese."
It's like, oh, this is my night cheese.
That's it. It's all cheese can be night cheese if you go for it. If you sing the song.
If you put your heart into it, anything can.
Anything can be night cheese. I'm trying to think. What about you? What's your favorite of the running gags?
Brian Williams being a creep.
Yeah, no, that is very good.
I found a sock full of birdseed. Stuff like I need to clean his dressing room. Like,
Yep.
What is he? He wants a mirror on his floor of his bathroom, which I guess makes sense when you have a see-through toilet. Like the fact that Brian Williams is this pervert is one of my favorite running jokes.
No, that is fantastic.
On the show. It's great.
I think one of my favorite things was I think the Jenna character was always good, and then there's just a certain tipping point where I don't know whether the actress sort of said, I want to go big with this, or they were like, okay, we've sort of run as far as we can with Jenna believably, let's just keep going up.
Yep.
Because there's I think it's the last 2 seasons where it got to a certain point where if she came on the screen, I just started laughing.
Yeah.
And every line of dialogue she said was solid gold. And I just couldn't take it. It was breaking me how funny she was. And I didn't feel like she was that at the start. And then the character just got more and more and more. And then I think is it Will Forte?
Will Forte, the last man on Earth, yes.
Yeah, that guy. When he comes into it and they've got their weird thing going.
Oh my god.
So good. And just keep pushing forward and keep going bigger with it. And she just is it Jane Krasinski?
Jane Krakowski.
Krakowski.
Yes.
She's definitely one of those actresses who just doesn't give a shit. She'll just keep going.
Oh,
big.
she just goes for it, and that's one of the reasons I love her.
Yeah, just fantastic. I mean, I don't know about your take on Kimmy Schmidt. I really enjoyed the first season of that, and then I watched the first episode of the second season, and I hated it.
Oh wow, really?
It was just it had 3 jokes that were just repeated, and it just was it was just when something's so unfunny, it's actually a bit embarrassing. It's like you're watching someone give a best man speech, but none of the jokes are landing.
Yeah,
it was sort of like that.
I love the first season. I thought the second season, it starts off rocky, but it settles into a groove towards the end. I really like the second season.
We'll probably give it another shot. It was just we're oh, Kimmy Schmidt, and we were dead excited to start watching it, and then we just watched the episode, and we're both like, ooh, that was a bit shit.
Well,
we'll come back to it later.
If you like Titus, you'll like the second season.
I will love Titus.
And there's so much more Carol Kane, and she is a treasure,
Yeah.
and she's one of the main reasons I watched that entire show. I love Carol Kane more than most things.
Okay. Did you watch Gotham? I think she's in that.
No.
Okay. Well, she's the Penguin's mother in that.
I know, and I'll only go so far.
Yeah, that's it. There's a lot of shite to wade through to get to her at that point, really.
I've seen previews for Gotham, and I hear people talk about it all the time, and it just does not sound good for me.
It's one of those weird shows. A few people on Twitter seem to really like it, but a majority of people think it's shit. I watched the first 8 episodes, and it just didn't grip me at all. There's bits I like, but there's not enough of that. When you sort of have a show where you're like, oh, I really like this one character, but everything else around it's trash. Yeah, so there's bits I really liked, but and then he just keeps getting renewed, because I thought that was going to be one season and done.
Which is very strange for Fox.
Yeah,
because they used to be known for we love canceling things. Arrested Development, you're out of here. Firefly, bye. They love canceling things.
But no, apparently I think they're in the superhero game now, so they just want to just keep pushing forward.
Yeah, unless it's called The Simpsons, they'll cancel you, basically.
Oh yeah, we've got quite a few shows that have been on this podcast that have been cancelled by Fox.
Yeah.
Like obviously Futurama and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a bit of a weird one. But
it'll go away eventually. Don't worry.
Yeah, I guess so. It's one of those. I was talking about this on the last episode with Daniel Schubert.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know when you have a thing where a show will, like, an advert will appear for it, and you're like, oh, is that still around?
Yeah, right.
Hell on Wheels has 5 seasons.
Wow.
Like, how did that happen? I can't do this again. I just had this conversation in the last episode. I'm going to just rehash the same points. Right, I may cut part of that out. I'm not doing that again.
No, it's fine.
I'm not going to be that guy who just comes on a podcast, hates Hell on Wheels, and then carries on. Gotta stop.
Is that the railroad one?
That is the railroad.
Okay.
Railroad.
Okay.
Can't do it. Going back to 30 Rock, I think one thing that was really good in this final episode, I did like the thing where Liz is trying to go on the message board, the parenting message board, and everyone just flips out. You're like, oh, that is,
that's the internet.
I feel that's completely accurate.
That's the internet right there.
Yep, just everyone's too woke.
That part came on. I'm like, it's that. Oh, this is internet. This is Twitter. This is pixels and reels. I want to jump off a bridge right now.
That's it. Just, like, a girl's bike? Is that the same as a girl doctor? Like, oh, shit. But I think one thing they did really well, and I think it might just be, it's stuck with me because it's actually quite similar to a conversation I just had with my wife a couple of days ago. Like, at the end, when it's sort of like, Liz really wants to work, and Chris doesn't.
Yeah.
And so she's like, well, why don't you just stay home with the kid? And I'll go to work. And she's like almost apologizing for it.
Yeah.
But like me and my wife were sitting around the other day and sort of looking at our budget and, like, we're thinking about, eventually whether or not we're going to have kids and things like that.
Yeah.
And it just makes more sense that if one of us was to stay at home, it would be me.
Yeah.
And it is that weird thing to sort of be like, yeah, this is a perfectly legitimate thing in this day and age, but is it something, is it something to be ashamed of? Is it, my wife loves a job and I love my job, but she earns more money than me. So, but I think it's good that, like, 30 Rock, a show that was ostensibly quite silly, could click into these really good sort of, like, social commentary moments. Like, Liz was always good for that idea of what it means to be a single woman who is sort of looked down on for being being a workaholic.
A businesswoman.
A businesswoman.
Which isn't a real word, according to Jack.
Yeah, exactly. So, there was that whole thing of like, oh, well, she's got to adopt because because she needs a kid and she hasn't got a man and so on and all that. And I think the show did well as well to, like, have her have a few sort of love affairs, but only really pull the trigger on her getting married at the end when she met someone.
Exactly.
It wasn't something that was like a constant plot line as well.
She met Cyclops and then they,
Yeah, that's
kids.
it, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was never rammed down your throat. It was never like, oh, Liz Lemon, unlucky in love. Like, she was.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of episodes. Yeah, exactly. But there would be there'd be 10 episodes where that would just not be an issue at all and just do its own thing. And I think that last episode is fantastic. I mean, I think everyone gets a goodbye and everyone gets an ending.
Yeah, it's a really good finale. Everyone gets their own little moment.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone gets a little moment in the sun, and like they even have like when Jenna's singing the Rural Juror song, you get that little flash of like a couple of characters.
Yeah.
Like a little flash of them in the past. Like, I think one of my favorite endings was Pete's.
Oh my God.
Faking his death.
Where Paula Pell shows up, she's like, get in the car. Oh, no, wait. Oh, man.
I rehearsed this. Hey, kids.
God damn it, Pete.
Yeah, just because I think there was definitely like Scott, Pete Hornberger, definitely his character like drifted in and out.
Yeah.
Where he would be like a main character and then he'd disappear for a while and so on.
Yeah.
And he, like you say, he was always a character I really liked because he was like the anti-Jack. Like Liz had, but then I think that was the thing though, like after a while, Jenna and Tracy were doing the TV show stuff, so you didn't need Josh anymore. And Jack was doing Pete's work as well in terms of character, because like the character, like, once Jack's character had softened to be someone who would help Liz and support her, you didn't really need Pete. And I think they had to keep moving the pieces around to pull people forward and push people back and so on to keep that central dynamic. I don't know about you and the people you watch the show with. I did know people who really wanted the show to end with Liz and Jack getting together.
See, that always... that crossed my mind, but I'm like, that would be weird.
It would be incredibly weird, and it would be a bit of a cop out as well. Cause
Yes,
the
it
thing,
would.
Yeah, because the thing about the show was like, yeah, a man and a woman can have a mentor-mentee relationship and a friendship without it having to be anything else. They can just be friends. It doesn't have to go anywhere, which is great. Again, another very mature concept in a very silly show.
Yes, I mean, and plus, let's face it, Liz Lemon's not a supermodel like Jack would like.
Yeah, to be fair, she's not his type.
He had lunch with Martha Stewart, and then he had dinner with her daughter.
Yeah. And people at home, you can't see Matt's furious air quotes.
Yes, furious air quotes.
Furious air quoting.
Yeah, I know a lot of lines from this show. Jeez.
Yeah, same. No, this is definitely like, because I do speak to people, obviously a lot on this podcast, and they'll talk about a show and they'll be like, oh yeah, it's just, I quote it all the time, it's effortlessly quotable.
Yeah.
And I'll have watched the show and I'll be like, yeah, I guess.
It's no 30 Rock, but,
It's no 30 Rock, because there's 30 Rock, like, I'm pretty sure, there's 138 episodes. A lot of them I've only watched once, and everything you've said, it's clicked in my head. It's something like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, that thing. And even now, like, just talking about it, little things unraveling, like, oh shit, yeah, Matt Damon was in this show.
Yes.
That just completely slipped my mind.
He was the pilot.
He was Carol the pilot. And
yes, Carol.
And he, and that was great as well, because that didn't feel like stunt casting.
No,
because he was in the show enough, and it was obviously the finale where does she have a gun to someone's head or something?
I think so.
Yes. Stuck on the plane. And that's why they split up, because they're both too stubborn. But that's how it, again, like, great thing of like a smart moment on a silly show in a silly way. Like, couples do have that point where they realize that as much as they like each other, maybe their personalities are too similar, maybe their faults are too similar, and they have to split up. And 30 Rock shows that by having a 12-hour standoff on a plane that ends with Liz taking some dude hostage. And then that's how it's like, oh no, we're too stubborn, we'll have to split up. And then there are no repercussions for that.
Of course not. Because of course there isn't.
Because of course there isn't.
But yeah, you're right, it is endlessly quotable. It's just one of those shows where a line will pop in your head.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
I mean, like every time, every once in a while, dinner will be getting made, and I'll just start screaming, "Where's my mac and cheese?"
Yeah.
Like this show is just, I know it sounds very cliche and cheesy, but it's a part of my life. I love this show.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I don't know whether, I think with like sitcoms more than dramas, I think everyone has a sitcom that they watched from beginning to end that really connected with them.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think, it's Cheers.
Okay.
How old are you, Matt?
I'm 31.
Okay, cool. So it's sort of like
I'm aware of Cheers.
Yeah, same. I'm very aware of it, but it's interesting, because some people I talk to of the same, maybe it's an American thing.
Maybe, yeah.
Who I talk to of sort of my age group and so on, and Cheers for them is the beginning, middle, and end when it comes to sitcoms.
Huh.
There's nothing better than it, apparently. And I always sort of think yeah, it was funny, but was it that good? But then for me, 30 Rock was that good.
Yes, yes it was.
30 Rock's definitely one of them. 30 Rock and you know what, Frasier. Always such a big fan of Frasier.
Okay, all right.
But I don't know how well Frasier's going to have aged. Whereas 30 Rock, I feel like could be ageless.
Yeah.
Like Kenneth Parcell.
Yes, he is immortal.
But yeah, I think it's interesting, because dramas, I think, come and go. Everyone has a Breaking Bad or The Wire, Deadwood, stuff like that. I think with them...
The Sopranos,
Yeah, drama's always good, whereas comedy is quite subjective. So... I do know people who, for them, if they were on a desert island and they could only watch one sitcom for the rest of their lives, it would be Friends, or it would be How I Met Your Mother. Dude.
I'd rather not watch How I Met Your Mother.
I would rather drown.
Yes. Friends I'm fine with, but I would rather not watch How I Met Your Mama.
Yeah, that's that. So many people have volunteered to do that on this podcast, and so many times I've had to turn them down because I can't. I'm just not ready. I think I have someone in mind to do it, but at the same time, we were talking about it, and I was like, oh yeah, no, you can have How I Met Your Mother. And then we carried on talking, and then someone mentioned Dawson's Creek, and she was like, "Oh, fuck How I Met Your Mother, I'll do that." Because no one wants to do it. It's definitely because it's an hour of ripping the show to pieces. But it depends, because I've had people who are like, "Oh, my favorite show is How I Met Your Mother. Can I do it?" No. Because
you
I can't
can't.
be polite.
Yeah.
I can't sit and just be like, yeah, it did. Because we're not going to
It's
talk about How I Met
fine.
Your Mother.
It's
But
fine.
yeah, it does what it does.
It's the television equivalent of fine.
Yeah. Visual chewing gum, I think
Yeah,
I've heard it said.
it's fine.
It's there. But for me, 30 Rock. Yeah, and it's something I definitely forgot about, but it's always a show that... Like, my parents are the same. Like, occasionally I'll be talking to my mum and dad on Skype and they're in England. I'll be like, oh, what are you up to? What did you do last night? I'm like, oh, we had a couple of gin and tonics, turned on the TV. There was 4 episodes of 30 Rock. We watched them all, laughed our asses off. And they don't... There's not many other shows where they'll do that. Like, 30 Rock is one they constantly go back to. Because I feel like it's just one of those effortlessly watchable shows. Like, it gives you the jokes. It's snappy. It's that good sort of comedy where, like, every line...
Yeah,
every line is a funny line.
It shows up, makes you laugh, gets the job done.
Yeah.
On to the next week.
That's it. And it was sort of like Seinfeld in the sense of like it never there was sort of like people would have they would like fix their arguments and stuff like that. They would have reunions and things, but it never had one of those big sort of like looking out of a window in the rain while like Coldplay was playing in the background or shit like that. It was always very much, it knew what it was, and these characters were...
No, it was staring out the window with Werewolf Bar Mitzvah playing in the background.
Exactly, or it'd be like...
They wrote their own songs.
Yeah, or you'd have, Tracy, like, staring at a sunset, and then the sunset would move, and it would just be part of the set.
Yes, and they'd roll it away, yes.
And it undercut a lot, because Tina Fey is, I think Tina Fey is very cynical. She's very... she's very funny, but at the same time, she doesn't take any shit. Like, she's had to really...
I've read her book. She's very cynical.
Yeah, she's had to really work to get where she is. So she's not gonna undercut it with shite. She puts the...
Yeah.
She goes wild, and she has a very, particular sense of humor, which is sometimes incredibly nasty, but she stands behind it. You know what I mean? She'll just keep going, which is good. And I think 30 Rock will definitely be her masterpiece.
Oh, I would say so. Yes.
But God. I could just, again, keep talking. I mean, last thing for this final episode, I think it's great to have... It's very 30 Rockian to, rather than having, like, the bookends from the first episode and the last episode, to be, like, the writer's room or the show or something like that. It's Tracy singing Pat Benatar in a strip club. That's the sort of bookend. So you're like,
that's the bookend you get when you sign on for a show called 30 Rock.
That's it. And it's not like a melodramatic thing. It's not like, oh, this is the place we met. It's like, oh, of course we're back in... Dark Sensations, I believe it was called. And it makes it's like you're not going to get one of these stupid things of like, oh, let's all go meet in the park, or they're all in the writers' room, like they all sort of leave and switch the lights off. It's like, no, I've got to go find Tracy. He's going to be at a strip club doing Pat Benatar,
Yes.
Which is very good, very in keeping with the show's tone.
Yes, very on brand, as the kids say.
As the kids are saying, it's very Bay. I don't know what that means.
That's people still say that. Maybe I don't know.
Who knows? Right, so is there anything else you'd like to add about 30 Rock before we wrap up?
No, I love it. It's good.
Yeah.
And if people haven't watched it, I'm sorry. Why did you listen to this episode? We just spoiled everything for you.
Yeah, how weird. What a weird thing to do. Yeah, how odd. Anyway, Matt, where can people find you on these internets?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at @TheRealMattC. You can also find me on my podcast called Hey, What You Watching? It's a weekly movie journal where Marcelo Pico and I talk about the movies that we've been watching. You can also find me over on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/pixelsandreels. It's a film discussion and pop culture group that I started over there about a year and a half ago, and we have a lot of fun. So come on down.
Fantastic. You can find my movie writing at audienceseverywhere.net. As always, if you want to be a guest on the show, you can find me on Twitter at firsttolastpod, or email me directly at fromfirsttolastpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, if you want to, there's still a million shows left to go. Obviously, don't go for How I Met Your Mother. Just keep that in mind. Or do. I don't know. We'll work it out. I don't know. Someone will do it eventually. I'm going to run out of shows. But that can be years down the line. We'll get there when the wounds have healed. Anywho, Matt, thanks for coming on.
Hey, I had a blast. This was a lot of fun. Any chance to talk about 30 Rock is good with me.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think that is the appeal of this podcast. It's sort of, there's too many times when you go on Twitter and you mention something that you really love, and there's always some knobhead who's like, oh, well, why do you love that? Because blah, 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 blah. Nope. This podcast, just come on, talk about your favourite TV show for an hour. geek out a little bit, and that's it. No judgments, no arguments. Anyway.
Mostly.
Unless it's How I Met Your Mother.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, that's it for tonight. My name is Sean Fallon. This has been From First to Last. Goodbye.